connectés. Je suis Anne Druguet, je suis en charge de l'international à la Fédération Française du Prêt à Porter Féminin. Je profite de ce 3e épisode de notre journée Focus Pays qui va être consacré au UK et aux USA pour saluer mes équipes, Tiffany Fang, Irène Beauvais et Oula Herzl. Nous avons le plaisir de vous accueillir donc pour cette 3e édition, enfin ce 3e épisode de la journée. On va s'intéresser au marché du Royaume-Uni, au marché des États-Unis. Pour ce faire, nous allons accueillir les équipes de Hive et d'Informa Market. La fédération et le service international accompagnent les marques de mode françaises sur ces différents marchés par notamment des plans de subvention que nous donnerons, dont nous donnerons les détails par la suite. Nous allons d'ores et déjà attaquer le marché britannique, le marché UK, avec les équipes de Hive. Notamment, nous avons le plaisir d'accueillir Nihat Berktas, qui est European Development Manager, et Robert Sapwell, pardon pour la prononciation, International Development Director. Je vous laisse à tous les deux la parole, mais visiblement, effectivement, on affiche d'ores et déjà les dates des salons qui sont organisés par Hive, le salon Scoop International et le salon Pure London Love Just Around the Corner. Donc, les deux salons vont avoir lieu du 11 au 13 février à l'Olympia, donc au même endroit. Sur ces deux salons, avec le soutien du défi, nous interviendrons à hauteur de 30% de subventions sur les stands et aménagements de stands. Nous signalons également que France Éclat soutient les marques de bijoux pour le salon Scoop. Et pour le salon Pure, pour les marques de bijoux, il est également possible d'utiliser la carte bonus de France Éclat qui vous permet d'identifier et de bénéficier d'une subvention sur 2 participations au salon de votre choix. Voilà, je vous remercie, Nihat et Rob. Welcome on board. Are you with us?
Yes, hi there. Good
Wonderful.
Afternoon. Apologies. Yes, my name is Rob. I'm going to share my screen. Nihat's having a few technical issues that he's trying to sort out at the moment, so I'm going to share my screen if that's okay. If you bear with us for 2 seconds. Thanks for joining us. Is there anything you want me to say beforehand, or should I just crack on with the presentation?
No, just let's go. Yeah, actually.
Great stuff. Okay, bear with me for 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, here we go. So let's go to this slideshow. Okay. Can you all see that? I can't, if that's okay. Can you all see what I'm seeing?
Yes.
I can't see you. Great. Excellent.
Perfect. That's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much for letting us join you again. Really do appreciate it. What I'm going to do is kind of go through a few slides just looking at the UK retail market, looking a little bit at the individual fashion market as well. And then Nihat, my colleague, is going to take us through the shows, essentially the 3 shows that we focus on in fashion. And there is 3 now, which is quite exciting, and Nihat will talk a little bit more about that later. But I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of what's happening in the UK at the moment. You know, and the UK has always been a vibrant and dynamic industry. You know, it really has. You know, and it's the 5th largest economy. We've got UK sales of 441 billion. That's the total value of our retail sales at this moment in time projected for 2023. Despite the challenges, it's still growing. You know, we've still got, you will perhaps hear some horror stories in certain areas of retail, like, for example, Wilkinson's, which is a very kind of lower end, famous long-term store, a bit like Woolworths. They actually took up the market share from Woolworths when they collapsed in 2008. And that will probably reach French mainstream media or business media, certainly. But there are some really good things as well. You know, still employs 3 million people in terms of the UK retail market. And also, you know, what has really stayed since COVID has very much been shopping local. That was almost disappearing from our mindset as a consumer, 8 or 9 years ago. But certainly since COVID, the role of the independent boutique in the provincial town where I live, just outside of London, the local high street, we like to call them, where you will always find a really nice hairdresser's, a really nice nail salon, 2 or 3 really nice restaurants, 1 or 2 boutiques, a pet shop. They're really coming to the fore, and the attention that a consumer pays to their local high street, as well as the department stores and what we call the out of town stores, like your big Nexts and your big Next Home, is very, very important. I think what the challenge we've got at the moment is the traditional high street in the United Kingdom. If you take London out of the equation, the traditional high street is tougher. The out of town retail parks and the independent, more localized high street are doing really well. And that's, of course, when you factor in online, of which 27% of sales are also online. But what I'm going to take you through is a bit more of a breakdown on what this looks like, specific to the audience on this call. And then I'm also going to show you how it's performing over the last quarter up until the end of the summer, which is quite interesting as well. But what we've got here, and this is really key, is that clothing and footwear have increased in 2023. Online has actually decreased overall year on year. But we've seen challenges in other areas. I'm sure this is probably reflective in France as well, where you have DIY and gardening that is down year on year. Buying electricals, all of the popular product that we were buying during lockdown has kind of reduced and continues to reduce. Health and beauty is up. Footwear is up by 7.2%. Clothing is up 3.2%. Homewares is marginally up. There's a bit of a challenge in homewares, but that's kind of what you would expect based on what our buying habits have been for the last 2 years prior. So overall, even though it's perhaps not, there are challenges in the market, like all retail markets, in terms of the cost of living all across Europe, and the UK, our inflation rates are still, I think only Germany has a higher inflation rate at the moment. So, but there are some really positive stories, which is great. And I think particularly in fashion, it is a lot more positive than it was. But what I wanted to show you a little is this is what's been happening over the last kind of back end of the summer, I would say, during July and August. This is the most up-to-date data that we have. But in the period in the whole of August, clothing retail sales rose 5% year on year, which is a good sign. Total retail sales rose nearly 5%. Clothing retail prices rose 7% in August, and the average weekly sales across clothing and footwear was 950 million. So, that's obviously back end of the summer holidays, over here in the UK. But overall, it's positive. It's going in the right direction. We can't say that there's not challenges in the clothing market, but essentially, it's a dynamic industry and a vibrant industry, and retail. We've got to really remember that we're one of the biggest retail spenders, in Europe, and retail touches lives of millions of people every day. But this hopefully gives you a bit more, the most up-to-date statistics we can get that are clothing and more fashion focused around how the market is performing. And then what I'd like to show you also is how online clothing and footwear is performing as well. you know, and it rose strongly again in August, because there was actually a fall of 4.2% a year ago when you look at year on year. And I think it was there was improved weather conditions over here. I'm sure it was probably the same in most of France, if not better, certainly in some areas of France. But we had a very, very poor July in terms of weather, which probably really affected what consumers were spending money on for clothing, because it was a bit out of sync with what traditionally would usually happen in July. Back to school sales were lower, in terms of back to school retail. That's not necessarily relevant to you guys, but I think it is important, as it shows the habitual buying habits of what consumers are doing. They were making do with what they had. I suppose that takes into account the cost of living, in that perhaps school uniform is not as much of a new school uniform, isn't as much of a must-have as it was perhaps 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, the average weekly spend for online clothing and footwear was 267 million in August. 226 million was spent in the same month in 2022. So online sales accounted for nearly 26% of the overall clothing and footwear market in August. So that's gone up nearly 2% a year ago. So even though the focus on online sales overall across all of retail has reduced, in August, online clothing and footwear sales rose 18%. So hopefully you can see, this table is really interesting, because you've got obviously online clothing and footwear, the annual growth, and then the average weekly spend in millions month on month from March. So you can see August wasn't as good as a July spend, average weekly spend, or a June spend, but it's getting back to kind of what it was around May time, which is what we kind of want to see. And look, just a little bit of info for you just around what's happening, what the focus is on. Obviously, sustainability is a massive thing in fashion across all of world and all sectors. But 77% of British shoppers now consider sustainability when they're purchasing fashion. That's not to say it's a be all and end all. They now consider that. So that's something to think about. And you've seen probably one of the most famous retailers over here in England, Selfridges, has targeted 45% of products to come through circular products and services by 2030. That's almost half of their entire ranges they want to come through a circular economy. I know it sounds a long way away, but it really won't be. You're talking like around 6 years now, right? So that's a big thing that's happened. ASOS will require all third-party brands to be part of its transparency and ethical trade policy by 2025. Now, ASOS, the buyers come to Pure. I'm sure they stop into Scoop and just around the corner also. So that's something to really think about if you're thinking of coming to the UK and participating in one of our shows, because ASOS will visit and they'll bring their buying team, and they'll start to probably ask questions of this nature as we head into 2024, ready for 2025. And then over 60% of British shoppers are more likely to purchase products with recognised sustainability certifications. Now, the key word here is more likely. It's not they are, it's more likely. It's coming onto the UK consumers' radar a lot more. They're thinking about it a lot more. I certainly think the younger generation, as in younger than me, I'm just a millennial, right? The generations that are younger than me are certainly thinking about this a lot more than I am. But I'm probably thinking about it a lot more than the generation that's older than me. But it just shows where perhaps the mindset is shifting in UK fashion. And the fashion sector overall, the final point is going to outperform market expectations in 2022, and is expected to reach £60 billion in 2023 as an overall sector in the United Kingdom. So we're on the right track. That concludes my presentation. and I hope you found it informative. I'm sure Adelaide and the team will share the slides, so this is information you can have, but hopefully it just comes across in a way that the UK market is buoyant and the fashion and clothing sector as a whole is very buoyant, but it's hopefully given you a little bit of a flavor on what's going to change, or what is changing in terms of this last slide, and the kind of the ethos that buyers are starting to think and consumers are starting to think. But no, thank you very much. I'm going to pass on to Nihat now. He's still having some problems, okay?
Thank you, Robert. Is Nihat wonderful? That's the story of a life. Bonjour Nihat.
Bonjour, désolé pour le problème technique, ça arrive toujours justement quand on essaie de faire quelque chose.
Bienvenue. Bienvenue, merci d'être là. Je te laisse la parole pour parler des différents trade shows.
Je suis français, donc je vais parler en français. Je suis basé à Londres, au siège social de Hive Group, qui est un grand groupe international, avec des shows dans différents secteurs. Et fashion, nous avons au Royaume-Uni. Nous sommes leaders au Royaume-Uni pour salon retail, fashion et...
Alors, Nihat, pardon,
oui.
Nihat, excuse-moi, je crois qu'on t'entend un petit peu mal, voilà, peut-être le micro un peu plus. Merci.
Problème technique qui persiste.
Parfait, parfait.
Je viens de réajuster le microphone. Donc, je disais que nous sommes un grand groupe. Au niveau retail, nous avons énormément de connexions au Royaume-Uni. Nous sommes très connus au niveau de nos salons. Nous n'avons pas uniquement des salons fashion, mais nous avons aussi des salons dans le domaine du retail, donc home et déco, un peu similaire à ce qu'on a à Maison Objet en fait, et un salon aussi du jardinage. Donc, pour présenter un petit peu ce qui s'était passé en 2022, on a eu une résurgence en fait de la consommation au niveau du fashion, qui s'était en fait arrêté. J'entends ma voix. Et en fait, ça s'est reconfirmé. Je pense que j'entends ma voix. Il y a un problème technique en fait. Je ne sais pas d'où ça vient. On peut regarder.
Essaie de parler, Nihat. Je pense que le
problème est peut-être résolu.
Oui, c'est parfait là. Très bien.
C'est parfait, d'accord. Donc en fait, en 2022, nous avons une résurgence en fait de la consommation du prêt-à-porter en fait, des consommateurs sur le marché du Royaume-Uni, en fait similaire à tout ce qu'on a vu dans le monde entier, hein, pas uniquement, c'est pas spécifique au Royaume-Uni. Et ça s'est confirmé en 2023. Il faut savoir que les Britanniques sont les deuxièmes à voyager le plus au niveau mondial après les Américains. Donc, ils ont besoin obligatoirement de vêtements pour différents événements. Donc, on a une inflation qui est persistante à 6,7%. Ça s'est ralenti, bien entendu, mais elle est toujours présente, ce qui pose bien entendu une problématique en termes d'achat. Donc, on est un peu plus sélectif en termes de notre consommation, mais il y a vraiment une demande qui est continue dans le domaine, puisque ce secteur, comme Rob nous l'a spécifié, est en train de grossir. Donc, on a une croissance. Les Britanniques voyagent beaucoup, donc ils ont besoin de vêtements avant d'y aller. Donc, ils n'achètent pas nécessairement en Espagne, en Grèce ou dans d'autres pays. Ils achètent avant. Donc, on peut voir des collections en fait de resort wear qui sont présentes dans les boutiques parce qu'elles vont être utilisées en fait en vacances, parce qu'on a aussi des maisons de vacances en Espagne, par exemple. Donc aussi les événements qui ont été reportés, comme les mariages et les événements sociaux qui ont pris de l'importance. Donc, on revoit une résurgence dans ce type de segment. Notre groupe, pour aller plus vite, nous avons tous les salons leaders dans leur segment, donc du fashion, de la maison, des objets de la maison et du jardinage. Donc, voici quelques logos de nos salons. Nous allons nous focaliser sur nos salons principaux, donc les salons londoniens. Pure Londres, très connu, et Just Around the Corner, peut-être moins connu, qui est plus orienté en fait accessoires et menswear, mais on va en toucher un mot parce que c'est très nouveau en fait chez nous, donc très récent, annoncé au mois d'août dernier. Nous avons racheté le salon Just Around the Corner, qui était en fait un grand salon showroom. Sur le modèle aussi de Scoop qui existe depuis 12 ans, donc je vais revenir un peu sur tous ces salons si vous ne les connaissez pas. Donc tous ces salons vont être organisés à l'Olympia, Kensington, dans l'ouest de Londres, centre-ouest de Londres, du 11 au 13 février prochain, qui en fait est le cœur de la période d'achat pour les acheteurs. Nous allons commencer par Scoop, qui était organisé précédemment en fait des saisons passées ou avant la pandémie dans une galerie d'art. Pour différentes raisons, nous avons bien entendu écouté l'industrie et sur le modèle en fait des salons danois ou des salons français, nous avons réuni en fait tous les salons qui font partie du groupe mais qui sont dirigés de façon différente et je vais vous le montrer. Au même endroit, comme on peut voir ici, en fait, la carte de l'Olympia où Scoop sera en fait à Olympia West. Donc, la période d'achat, donc ça fait 12 ans que ce salon existe avec une demande un peu pour des marques plus premium et internationales de ce qu'on appelle second line. Donc, la fondatrice et curatrice de ce salon est Karen Radley, qui a des années d'expérience en fait dans le domaine, qui a été designeuse, qui a travaillé dans l'industrie, où ses parents aussi étaient dans l'industrie du textile. Donc, elle vient de l'industrie. Donc, elle est la première conseillère en fait en termes de marque. Si ça pourra correspondre effectivement aussi aux attentes des acheteurs qui viennent à Scoop. Donc, ça sera organisé, comme je l'ai dit, à l'Olympia West. Pour faciliter en fait les acheteurs qui, bien entendu, font attention à leur budget pour se déplacer dans tel ou tel salon, sachant que les hôtels sont chers, les transports sont chers partout dans le monde. Donc tout le monde fait attention. C'est une des raisons principales pour lesquelles nous avons regroupé tous ces salons. Nous avons des collections contemporaines et premium uniquement. Donc, nous avons 250 collections de marques de designers et de marques commerciales qui sont sélectionnées par Karen et avec nos différents représentants sur les différents marchés. Et il y a une phase de sélection pour entrer sur ce salon Scoop parce qu'il y a une capacité limitée et donc on va bien répondre en fait aux attentes aussi des acheteurs qui connaissent ce salon. Donc tous les acheteurs du Royaume-Uni ne viennent pas à ce salon s'ils ne sont pas intéressés par ce type de collection qui sont plus orientées, plus premium, comme nous l'avons répété. Donc nous avons des lignes dominées par le women's wear, contemporain, resort wear, outerwear. Nous avons du footwear, de l'accessoire, de la joaillerie et nous aimerions bien entendu avoir un peu plus de lifestyle puisqu'en fait nous avons de plus en plus de magasins qui proposent en second type de produits des bougies ou des produits de beauté, etc., qui pourraient être intéressants pour les consommateurs puisque tous les magasins essayent de travailler sur le modèle des concepteurs pour avoir une bonne expérience pour leurs acheteurs. Donc, mise sur la qualité de service qu'on veut donner dans les boutiques au Royaume-Uni après la pandémie. Quelles sont les raisons pour exposer sur ce salon? Donc, des lignes second line, ce qu'on appelle second line. C'est facilement accessible. On target une audience de 4000 acheteurs. Nous avons 2000 acheteurs qui viennent, 50% en fait qui se déplacent pour regarder de nouveaux types de collections. Sur le salon, il y a un renouvellement sans cesse. Saison après saison, puisque nous conseillons en fait aux marques, et je pense que ça c'est vrai pour tous les salons internationaux, de faire minimum 3 salons pour avoir un retour sur investissement. Donc 75% des acheteurs reviennent et 25% est sans cesse renouvelé. Donc ça permet aussi de voir en fait d'écrire des commandes avec les clients qu'on a actuellement et aussi avec des nouveaux clients tout simplement. C'est une belle porte d'entrée en fait sur le marché du Royaume-Uni parce que maintenant 12 ans d'existence et la saison d'achat commence à peu près peu près au 20 janvier, il se termine vers le 25 février. Donc, le salon se tient en fait en plein milieu de la saison d'achat quand les acheteurs ont leur budget à dépenser. Donc, ils se préparent, ils commencent à les dépenser en amont. Ils regardent, ils contactent déjà leur fournisseur actuel et en fait, ils viennent découvrir aussi des nouvelles collections sur les salons. C'est pour ça que c'est important en fait de venir constamment sur les salons. Quelques images, en fait, on avait un thème un peu marocain. Le salon est très édité, très intimiste. Et, on appelle ça un peu un concept comme un department store, comme si vous alliez dans un department store. Vous avez le même feeling en fait. Comme je l'avais un peu mentionné, le salon est très orienté prêt-à-porter féminin, avec une touche, bien entendu, de lifestyle, accessoires, bijouterie, que des marques aussi ajoutent à leur collection pour pouvoir aussi vendre aux acheteurs. Nous avons récemment acheté au sein de Hive Just Around the Corner, qui était un salon orienté menswear. Le salon Just Around the Corner sera associé au salon Pure London. Pour donner Pure London, le X veut dire love, Just Around the Corner. Donc, c'est une collaboration. Nous voyons une image du salon de l'année dernière, en autumn-winter 2023. En fait, Just Around the Corner sera à l'étage, en fait, ce qu'on appelle la galerie. Donc, Pure Londres sera dans le hall qu'on appelle le Grand Hall. Et Just Around the Corner sera à l'étage avec un accès facilité, avec des indications pour montrer aux acheteurs où se situent les différents secteurs. La directrice du salon est Gloria Sanducci. Comme l'indique son nom, est italienne d'origine. Elle parle français, elle a vécu en France, elle a une sensibilité pour la France, donc elle aime bien les marques françaises. Notre équipe est plus commerciale, donc elle est orientée avec des personnes qui sont là depuis des années dans l'industrie. Pour le women's wear, nous avons Mélanie. Pour le pop, nous avons Carole. Et pour le sustainable, nous travaillons avec la durabilité. Nous travaillons avec une consultante externe qui conseille les acheteurs, mais aussi les marques en fait, en termes de leurs objectifs que les Nations Unies ont définis en fait en termes de leur. Et nous avons un secteur dédié pour cela. C'est le salon leader fashion au Royaume-Uni en termes de sa taille, tout simplement. C'est une référence quand vous dites Pure Londres au niveau international. C'est très connu, le salon existe depuis quasiment 30 ans, quand Commercial Roads, en fait, qui était là où on avait les showrooms, on commençait un petit peu à avoir de moins en moins d'acheteurs, puisqu'en fait, les habitudes d'achat ont changé et le salon Pure London a été lancé. Sachant que les acheteurs ne venaient plus toutes les semaines ou toutes les 2 semaines pour regarder des collections, mais tous les 6 mois. Voici un petit peu un snapshot, une image du salon, en fait, à quoi ça ressemble. C'est un show commercial, comme on peut le trouver à Paris, à Who's Next, tout simplement. On peut l'identifier un petit peu à Who's Next, mais version Royaume-Uni-Irlande, parce que l'Irlande fait partie aussi de ce marché, ils n'ont pas de salon. Le salon Just Around the Corner, en fait, a été créé par Jules Dawson, qui en fait est un showroom, c'est une agence de marque au Royaume-Uni, qui est située dans l'est de Londres, le quartier très trendy, très tendance de Londres. Il a créé son agence juste en 2012 et il a 25 ans d'expérience avec sa femme en fait pour avoir lancé en fait son agence et il aide des marques reconnues à vendre sur le marché du Royaume-Uni. Donc c'est un expert du marché. Donc nous, ce qu'on essaye de faire avec Pure et Just Around the Corner, qui est l'objectif est de réunir tous ces salons au même endroit pour avoir une plateforme pour tous les acheteurs et leur faciliter un petit peu la vie en termes pour passer des commandes, pour voir leur collection et pas perdre leur temps, sachant que depuis la pandémie, les acheteurs aiment bien passer leurs commandes et passer un petit peu à autre chose. Et on entend beaucoup des acheteurs très fatigués à avoir différentes collections. Donc nous, on veut leur simplifier leur vie. Et comme ça, ils peuvent retrouver différents types de collections au même endroit, avec même des showrooms aux alentours qui se font comme à Paris, dans la même semaine, pour faciliter un peu les acheteurs. C'est l'orientation qu'on a donnée. Quelques statistiques. Donc, le Salon Pure Londres est un des seuls salons au Royaume-Uni qui possède un catwalk qui donne les tendances. Nous travaillons avec une agence justement française de Paris qui nous donne les tendances pour les saisons à venir. Et nous les partageons sur le catwalk, tant pour les acheteurs que tant pour les marques aussi. Et en fonction des collections sont choisies par un directeur qui organise, un styliste qui organise le catwalk, et les acheteurs, ça leur permet de voir les collections qui sont prises par des marques et aller voir, et ça leur permet d'aller voir directement sur les stands pour placer des commandes. Nous avons aussi des séminaires, bien entendu, pour donner un peu, comme on dirait, le là. Dans le domaine du fashion, des discussions, quelles vont être les tendances, quelles sont les problématiques, quels sont les challenges, comment avoir sa boutique au mieux pour attirer des consommateurs. Donc, ce n'est pas uniquement orienté pour les marques, c'est orienté pour les acheteurs, pour les attirer sur le salon. Comme je l'ai indiqué, c'est le plus grand salon tant en termes de marques. Nous avons les statistiques pour une année complète, en fait. Nous avons à peu près 13 000 acheteurs, mais si on rajoute aussi les acheteurs de Just Around the Corner, je pense que nous allons atteindre pour l'année 2024 un chiffre bien supérieur. Nous sommes très orientés digital au Royaume-Uni, donc beaucoup d'acheteurs regardent sur nos plateformes, notre site web, visitent annuellement. Donc la page Pure Londres donne beaucoup de visibilité en fait à toutes les marques si elles bookent leur stand bien en amont. Pardon. Comme je l'ai spécifié, donc voilà quelques images du catwalk avec des personnalités qui viennent discuter. Nous les invitons à discuter et ça permet d'attirer beaucoup d'acheteurs. Et c'est l'objectif en fait pour qu'ils puissent passer des commandes avec des marques qui sont présentes. Pour Londres, nous avons une pléiade en fait d'acheteurs qui viennent, d'indépendants qui constituent le cœur, en fait, comme sur tous les salons internationaux, 66% approximativement. Nous avons aussi les department stores et les online, les magasins online et les multistores. En ce moment, ce qui performe justement le plus, c'est le cœur des acheteurs qui représente les indépendants, puisque nous avons vu en fait avec la pandémie, beaucoup de personnes travaillent de chez soi, tout simplement, et veulent faire des achats en fait aux alentours. Donc ça bénéficie beaucoup les petites boutiques qui ont vu leur nombre augmenter juste après la pandémie. Donc nous avons des nouveaux magasins qui s'ouvrent à l'extérieur des grandes villes, hein, tout simplement. Et cette tendance va continuer. Il y a une proximité et ça bénéficie surtout que ces petites structures, tout simplement, passent de bonnes commandes et ne demandent pas forcément de discount pour asphyxier un petit peu les marques, tout simplement. Donc ça bénéficie beaucoup aux marques. Sachant que les consommateurs qui travaillent dans les grandes villes habitent dans les petites villes et donc ils ont un pouvoir d'achat très important. Les department stores actuellement ont un petit peu justement avec cette tendance un peu plus de difficultés, mais elles sont toujours présentes parce qu'elles sont toujours des structures qui sont solides, qui appartiennent à de grands groupes, qui sont financés et donc elles ont une vision plus long terme, donc elles seront toujours présentes, même s'il y a une restructuration sur le marché. Donc nous avons tout le monde vient sur le salon Pure London en fonction des collections qui leur sont présentées sur le site web. Nous avons Just Around the Corner. Je vous ai un petit peu indiqué, ça ne va pas correspondre peut-être aux attentes de nos auditeurs aujourd'hui puisque c'est orienté prêt-à-porter féminin. Just Around the Corner est très spécialisé menswear, donc ils attirent beaucoup de la même façon les indépendants, les department stores, les onliners et les magasins multiples. Orienté menswear, mais on a aussi beaucoup d'accessories. Ils sont représentés aussi par des showrooms sur le principe de scoop. Donc, ils ont aussi des marques féminines. Donc, ils ont aussi des acheteurs de magasins prêt-à-porter féminins aussi qui viennent. Donc, nous avons créé la synergie pour la saison prochaine et nous allons les inviter aussi via nos différents canaux. Un petit peu, voilà l'audience. Le salon est très orienté marché Royaume-Uni, Irlande, avec 80% de visiteurs, bien entendu, britanniques et irlandais, et 20% internationaux de différents pays. Donc, comme vous voyez, un peu partout dans le monde. nous avons listé les 84 pays qui participent sur le salon. Quel est l'objectif en fait d'exposer avec nous? Donc, ça vous permet de créer des leads qu'il faut suivre en fait par la.
Alors,
oui.
Oui, pardon, je fais un peu de timekeeper, pardon.
Oui.
Est-ce que il nous reste 5 minutes?
D'accord, merci. Merci, je vais synthétiser. Je vous enverrai de toute façon toutes ces informations. Alors, je pense que vous pourrez l'envoyer. Les différents secteurs, je vais les balayer rapidement. Donc, nous avons le secteur femmes, le secteur mode jeune, le secteur durabilité. Nous avons footwear et accessoires, joaillerie, bijouterie fantasy, prêt-à-porter masculin. Together, donc c'est des marques qui font hommes et femmes. Nous ajoutons aussi le lifestyle et donc responsible, c'est aussi concernant la durabilité pour les marques hommes. Je vous ai mis quelques marques ici en fait, et vous aurez le temps un peu de regarder les marques qui participent un petit peu, des marques internationales. Donc ça, je passe rapidement. Avec la plateforme Pure London, ça vous permet 365 jours de faire la promotion de votre marque avec votre espace dédié, travaillant avec les différents acteurs de l'industrie. Pour un petit peu synthétiser sur les dernières minutes, en fait, nous avons beaucoup de questions concernant le Brexit. Et nous travaillons avec une consultante qui, via ce lien, nous avons les contacts et vous pourrez la contacter directement pour les questions relatives au Brexit. Donc, comment faire la documentation, elle va vous indiquer. Nous avons un guide, en fait, que nous pourrons vous envoyer. Et pour finir, en fait, il y a toujours des nouveautés pour 2024, bien entendu. Nous avons un programme spécifique hosted, donc nous allons payer hôtel et transport à 500 acheteurs britanniques et irlandais, les top 500 et les top 200 internationaux que nous avons en termes de cible pour pouvoir donner plus de retour sur investissement aux marques, tout simplement. Les marques pourront envoyer aussi leur wishlist, en fait, qu'elles veulent voir, et elles seront directement envoyées à l'agence de public relationship directement. Ça permettra de les contacter directement en disant que cette marque est directement sur le salon. Pour 2024, nous introduisons aussi un service d'introduction d'agents. Je pourrais vous envoyer les conditions ultérieurement, sachant que ce service a été juste signé récemment, donc lundi. Je vous ai mis le lien si vous voulez plus d'informations et nous pourrons vous donner les informations en temps voulu. Voilà. Des questions?
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup, Niad, pour cette présentation. Thank you very much, Robert, for your presentation of the UK market as well. Is there any question? I know that je sais qu'il y a toujours des questions sur la gestion du Brexit. Est-ce que le Brexit représente encore une contrainte pour les marques du mode françaises? Il y a eu un premier effet au tout début, enfin quand le Brexit est arrivé, mais effectivement depuis les retailers ont quand même pris l'habitude de travailler et d'inclure dans leur prix un certain nombre de taxes à leur charge. Il est vrai qu'on préconise et il est plus confortable malgré tout d'avoir un agent ou un représentant local pour mieux travailler avec le UK.
Oui, nous allons faciliter ça pour 2024, sachant que les agences ont l'habitude de travailler avec les marques internationales, parce qu'en majorité, elles ont 80% de marques internationales et 20% de marques UK. Les salons du Royaume-Uni sont dominés par des marques internationales, tout simplement, et les acheteurs ne se déplacent pas dans les salons internationaux ou très, très peu. Et c'est pour ça qu'elles ont l'habitude en fait de traiter avec toutes les questions liées à la documentation Brexit, comment faire, etc. Donc ils ont l'habitude en fait.
Merci beaucoup. Donc nous restons, les équipes de Hive et de la Fédération, nous restons bien sûr à votre disposition pour toute question complémentaire concernant le marché britannique ou concernant les différents salons de Hive, notamment Scoop et Pure, qui sont subventionnés jusqu'à 30% par le comité de promotion défi. Merci beaucoup.
Merci alors.
Merci. So now we are going to welcome our US team. Thank you very much for joining us so early for you. So thank you, Edwina Kulego, VP International Men's and Fashion Market for Informal Markets. And welcome as well, Amy Giaraputo, who is International Business Development Manager for Informal Market as well. And welcome, bienvenue Camille Descolonges, qui est la fondatrice de Connexion Trend et agent pour les salons d'Informal Market. Thank you, thanks all of you. We have a very short slide to share just to see. Maybe if we can, I have some trouble myself to share the slide on this third part of the focus. Okay, here we go. So I just wanted to remind everybody actually the subsidies and the timing. So les salons coterie et designer and agent ont quelques jours d'écart. Le coterie à New York aura lieu du 20 au 22 février et designer and agent du 18 au 20 février. Nous soutenons le coterie et designer and agent à hauteur de 50% jusqu'à 50% sur stand et aménagement du stand avec l'aide du défi. France Éclat intervient également sur ces salons pour soutenir les marques de bijoux françaises. So now let's speak about coterie and let's speak about the US market first. Thank you.
Wonderful. Bonjour. Thank you all so much for allowing us to join you today, this afternoon for you. We are very grateful to be invited by our friend Anne-Laure at French Fédération Prêt-à-Porter. We have our colleague Camille here as well, and Amy Giaraputo, who is the manager overseeing Europe for Informal Markets Fashion. I am Edwina Kulego. I'm the Vice President of International and Menswear. I have been in the fashion and trade show industry for about 13 years and have been with Informa for most of my time. So today we're going to give you a general overview of some of the trends, consumer trends, market trends in the US, and then we'll take a deep dive into our events, how they're changing, some new events that we are launching like Miami, Nashville, for example. So yeah, we'll kick it off with McKinsey and Business of Fashion, State of Fashion report, and then we'll go into our Informal Markets presentation.
We love that. I take the opportunity to say that I didn't mention it earlier, but as well, we consider as a federation for the French brand that the Miami market, the Miami area is quite important. Therefore, we are supporting with subsidies some the Cabana and Destination in Miami.
Wonderful. Yeah, Miami is becoming a very vibrant city. I think one of the reasons why Miami and Florida has been growing in terms of a market and interest in the US is because during the pandemic, that was one of the areas in the US that kind of stayed open and was able to operate. So a lot of businesses outside of fashion included, were able to launch events where we're able to function in Florida. And that trend is continuing to grow. We too are seeing a lot of opportunities in cities outside of the usual Los Angeles or New York, even in Las Vegas where we have events. We are definitely focused on more of a regional strategy and to kind of meet our customers where they are versus having these larger global events. So to start off, I wanted to give an overview of the fashion sales in 2023 and how it's grown since the pandemic. So as you can see, for Europe, the US, and China, during the pandemic, sales were down. Things were tough. You're seeing a dip in the percentages across the board. And a spike in 2021. So in 2021, doors were opening again, online sales were booming, brands were able to travel and go to trade shows, facilitate their wholesale and retail businesses. And that growth has continued in the US this year. So this year we've seen a significant growth in consumer sales, in events in general. People are out and about again, they're shopping. Retail stores in the US are creating more experiences. We'll cover more of that in our presentation, but a lot of department stores and even smaller boutique and specialty stores are realizing that they need to do more in their spaces in order to keep consumers coming, returning, and enjoying. And so we've seen a steady growth in 2023. And in 2024, obviously, with the state of the world, with inflation rates growing, there is concern from a general standpoint. But in comparison to China and Europe, for example, North America is still seeing optimism in 2024, despite some of the global and economical challenges that we're all faced with. Amy, feel free to chime in on any stats before I move on to the consumer trends.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, China's actually looking pretty good for the future, China and the US. Europe, definitely a little slower. The other thing to note, apart from stats, is that in the United States, even though there is, like everywhere, this terrible inflation and salaries are not keeping up, although they are higher than average than the European salaries. Not keeping up though with inflation, and this is what the US population is really feeling. However, our business remains strong, and Americans as a population, we buy above our means. I even mentioned this, Camille and I were talking about how a Starbucks coffee is $6 to $7, and you know, people buy, and people in the United States, even when they buy above their means, is pretty much what happens. Luxury, those that have a lot of money, of course, are still buying luxury and also contemporary. But the contemporary market is still strong, and we still have that aspirational customer buying. So that's positive.
Awesome. So if we look at the global economy, one thing that I think we're all facing is the fragility. We're becoming more careful with spending. We're definitely making decisions in terms of what to buy and when. This will continue. It was already happening this year. This will continue into 2024, where fashion brands will need to carefully plan and navigate many of the uncertainties and risks. I think fashion brands are also being more selective and particular on their collections, how big they are, what products they put out. Many brands that I've been speaking with, US brands, are sticking to their core collections that they are selling, that retailers are reordering. So there's definitely mitigation and brands, fashion brands in general, that are just being more careful with how they're spending, how they're producing product, and how they're putting that out through wholesale and retail channels. Understanding where to invest globally is definitely becoming a conversation that we're hearing a lot about and seeing. Brands can reevaluate their regional growth priorities. We mentioned Nashville and Miami and other cities that Informa are looking to expand into. There's definitely an appetite for escaping larger global markets and looking at more regional areas to grow, which is a positive thing. I think as a result of the pandemic, all of us are kind of trying to figure out how to have a lot of impact without a huge spend. In terms of the consumer shifts, fluid fashion is definitely gaining a lot of traction. This was already happening in 2022. We're seeing it this year in just a blend of expression and identity. Within menswear and women's wear, we have a lot of buyers coming to our events asking us for brands that are fluid, blurring the lines. You have stores, whether they're department stores or specialty stores, that are catering to customers that are looking to buy for all. Formal wear reinvented. I think everyone was kind of waiting for this trend to kick off. You're seeing a lot of more occasion wear, growing in the US. Weddings are happening again. You have employees going back into offices. So although people are in general dressing more casually, you're seeing more occasion wear grow, and that is something that we are predicting will continue to grow well into the end of 2024. The third part is the two-track spending. So depending on factors including disposable income levels, some customers are going to be careful. They may even postpone spending unless they have the means to spend in luxury and travel. We're also seeing a higher demand in off-price. We have a lot of off-price stores that shop our events. Saks off Fifth is a great example, but there are retailers that are demanding lower price points from brands, for brands to sell off products at a lower rate in order for them to serve a market that is looking for price cuts and more price-friendly product. Yeah. So now, okay, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Another important statistic in this report is half of fashion executives that were interviewed in this report expect to expand their footprint in North America. And this is also what we're hearing in general in trends, that the world, there's a lot of unrest and instability everywhere, including North America, but there is more stability here than the rest of the world. So this is a good thing for our market. Expansion is expected. And as Edwina mentioned, the trend of occasion wear is really growing. 40% of those that were interviewed said they really expect that area to grow, which we've saw in our last show actually, and expanded that area.
Awesome. Okay, now we are going to tell you a little bit more about our upcoming events and some other global market trends. Let's see if this is coming up correctly.
If not, yeah, there you go.
Awesome. Okay, so in Forma Markets Fashion, we're known for producing events like Project, Coterie in New York, which is a gem and very popular for our French community. We also have Sourcing at Magic, which launched in New York for the first time last month, and Magic, which is a big pillar in Las Vegas and now in New York. Magic is actually celebrating 90 years. So for 90 years, Magic has been producing fashion trade shows and connecting brands with retailers. So Informa Markets as a whole is a legacy brand and company that has been serving the retail and US market for many, many years, 90 years next year to be exact. We are the largest fashion trade show producer in the US. Throughout our various events, and we also offer manufacturing and supply chain opportunities through our Sourcing at Magic event. Our mission is always to drive positive change within the fashion industry. We are very focused on, our ethical practices, social empowerment, environmental stewardship. Sustainability was mentioned earlier from our friends in the UK. That continues to be a huge focus for us as a trade show and for our customers. We're seeing more and more buyers asking us to call out the brands that are making positive change in the industry. And we no longer see that as a trend. I think it's a new reality for fashion, and that's something that will continue to grow. We have close to 250,000 active industry contacts, including buyers, brands, and manufacturers and suppliers at our various events. We are truly global, so you may see some French buyers at Coterie, for example, in New York. There's definitely been examples of French brands coming to New York and meeting buyers from their own countries. We have over 180 countries represented through our brands and buyers. So truly a global marketplace, which we take pride in. And the top priority of almost 90% of the buyers that come to our events are meeting new partners. They're coming to meet, make connections, find and discover the faces behind the brands. As many of you know, the pandemic was tough for us. Our shows were shut down. And so now that the doors are open, there's just a new energy and appetite for buyers to touch and feel product again, and to kind of shy away from the digital line sheets and the overload of communicating digitally. We have over 80% of buying power on our floor. So it's truly decision makers that come to our events, including presidents, CEOs, and VPs. Many new brands and existing brands are writing orders at our events. They are order writing events. We're very proud of the fact that a new brand can come to our show and expect a buyer to pull out a pen and paper and actually write orders, or do it through a digital platform like Jor or New Order. So a few more updates on the US market. We have approximately 38,400 stores in the US, 30,000 of that being women's. So clearly that is a huge driver for us. Retailers are continuing to diversify their lifestyle offerings. We touched on this last year when we did this presentation. We're seeing more and more stores that are bringing in apparel, footwear, accessories, home, gift, beauty, even books. There's just a lot more diversification. It's very hard to find a standalone footwear store in the US, or a store that is only carrying one category. Most stores are seeing that they need to kind of branch out. Similar to Merci in Paris, there's a cafe, there is a library, I believe, there are home products. That trend continues to grow for us. Wholesale continues to provide brands with stability and an ability to scale across an omni-channel distribution. That really means that during the pandemic, brands obviously found other solutions, right? So when the trade shows were shut down, brands were meeting their consumers directly. They're going on the road, packing their product, driving to new cities to connect with buyers. And so we are definitely seeing that brands are finding new ways to connect and new ways to sell, but wholesale continues to be strong, and we're seeing growth across all of our events, which is a positive thing for us. A few more market updates. Information technology, the shift in consumer priorities and spending habits have changed the way we...
Sorry to interrupt. I think it's staying on page 1.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's not actually sharing. If you want me maybe to.
Oh, I was under the impression you guys were
okay.
seeing it. Okay, go ahead and try.
We're seeing, yeah, just page 1, but let me try. So
Okay.
what page are you on, Edwina?
I was actually on 3 and 4, I believe.
Okay, so, perfect. Here I'm on 3.
Okay, apologies. So
that's okay.
You
can
continue.
Can see this?
Can you see this, Camille and Angelo?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can
Yes,
you do a full screen if you go to view, Amy?
Yes.
Wonderful. And then full screen mode.
Where am I?
If you go further down.
Full screen. Here I am.
Perfect.
Okay.
And then skip over to page 5, please. Oh, so you guys missed all of this. All right. Next.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's technology.
You're here. Okay.
Okay, yes, I'm here. So retailers are diversifying their offerings. We cover that. Concept stores are continuing to grow. We're also seeing pop-up stores. So, for example, there are a group of brands in New York that came together to launch a store for the holiday. So it opened 2 weeks ago, and they're going to continue on to the end of the year. This is a very creative approach. They're finding retail space in Soho, which is a highly attractive area for consumers, and they're banding together. So a group of about 5 or 6 brands that have a pretty strong consumer base in the US decided to open up a pop-up store due to a venue being open at a prime location in Soho. So again, you're seeing a lot of brands come together to experiment and find new ways to touch their customers, which I think is great for all. Department stores, I would say last year and in 2021, you were seeing a lot more bankruptcy and closure announcements. This year has been pretty steady. And I think a lot of department stores are implementing more off-price in order to keep their businesses growing and to diversify. Online retailers are the fastest growing segment. That is still a big trend. So we're seeing Amazon buyers on the floor. We're seeing buyers from ASOS in the UK coming to New York and to Vegas to shop. That continues to be a focus for us as Informa, to find new and online stores that we don't have relationships with, to invite them to come and shop our shows, because that is a top priority for the brands. The importance of specialty stores, 80% of the stores that would come to Coterie or to any other events that we produce are specialty and boutique stores. Those are the stores that are really driving the market and driving our shows. And I think specialty and boutique stores have become even more important as a result of the pandemic. They are a bit more flexible than department stores. The order minimums are friendlier, and the reorders are what the brands, especially a lot of our international brands, our European brands, are happy about. Is when they come to Coterie, they may get a fairly small order to start off with, but as those stores are selling out the product, they're doing reorders in between the seasons. So they're not waiting to see a brand at Coterie in September again or in February. They are staying in close communication with the brand and ordering as their consumers are buying, which is positive. The importance of e-commerce, we all know how that continues to grow for millennials and the Gen Zers of the world. TikTok has launched an online shop. I'm not sure if that is the same in Europe, but in the US, TikTok is becoming very powerful, especially for Gen Z and millennials. You can look at a video on TikTok and click on the video and actually see all of the brands that are tagged, and it takes you to an e-commerce checkout. So you can purchase through TikTok. I buy on Instagram. I never thought I would say that, but I am starting to buy products on social media. I have fallen into the trend. It's easy. If it's a trusted site, of course, I look at the comments and see if there are any red flags. If not, I definitely check out on Instagram. So this is something that will continue. It's very clever. We actually did a partnership with TikTok at our Las Vegas event, because that is what our customers are looking for. That's where their consumers are shopping. So we feel a responsibility to deliver that outlet to our audience. So we are also doing things differently on this side. Fashion evolution, brands and retailers that speak to their thrives are usually the ones that are successful. Being able to really know who your customers are, know their behaviors, know where they shop, where they like to eat, how you advertise and market to your customer, especially online, is increasingly important. Consumers are considering the impact to the world and the environment in the US. A lot of brands are shopping consciously. They're looking at your about page on your website to see if you're Black owned, if you're woman owned, if you support artisans in the countries that you produce in. And so there are more questions coming from consumers, and therefore we're also seeing more questions coming from the retailers that are shopping brands, whether they're American or international. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to let Amy cover some of the information that I think is the most helpful to the brands on the call today in terms of how to prepare for the US market, how things work on our side, how to prepare yourself and set yourself up for success.
Thank you, Edwina. So in preparing for this presentation, I was thinking, before I had this job, which I've had for almost 2 years, I was a brand. I always worked for Italian brands, whether they were large multinationals or small to mid-size, that I was working in a multi-brand showroom supporting those brands. And I was thinking, what are the things that I would hear retailers say most frequently? I thought that would be helpful to go over. And key to success, finding your voice as a brand, having a story that is clearly and succinctly communicated, because what I would hear a lot was, I don't have time for a walkthrough, or send me your line sheet. That's something that you will commonly hear, whether you're in a showroom or, you know, on at a trade show. So that's why it's key to be able to tell the story of the brand, but in a way that's you're able to do it in bullet points, like no more than a few minutes. Buyers and retailers typically don't have a lot of time, like all of us these days. We're all stretched thin. So being able to communicate really clearly and quickly is a big help to buyers. And in line with that, you should have really good line sheets. Have something that a buyer can just pick up and take with them, or that you can email. Everything should be included in there: wholesale, retail prices, delivery windows, size scales. There should be some lifestyle shots that they can quickly see everything and think of any question they might need to ask, and it is already there in your line sheet that's prepared. Another thing that to focus on is sell out more than sell in. Sell in is what happens at our trade shows when buyers come and place an order. Sell out is how they do and what they're selling in their stores or online. This is really key, as Edwina was saying, that if you are selling out in a store, they're going to reorder. They're being very careful with inventory and focusing on what works for them. And maybe the first order won't be as large as you may have hoped, but you're counting on the reorders and a long-term relationship with these brands. Another thing that a retailer will say is, what are your best sellers? And be ready with an answer. You're likely, when you're coming to a show, you've already gone through your market. You've had brands, retailers in your showroom, and you've sold. So you know what has done well, which items have made your minimums, and you can take the lead and show the stores, this is my best seller. This is what I recommend. And they actually appreciate that and want that. Delivery cadence. So this is basically the standard delivery in the US. September, spring product delivers, in store January through March. Feb, fall delivers, in store August through September. Now things have changed a lot, where yes, this obviously still is the case for delivery, but people come to our shows and often want immediates. Immediates can mean a 6-week delivery. So also be ready with whatever you have in stock at the moment. And the weather is changing. So, you know, for a February show, a brand may come and still want something that is warmer weather. So that can vary. Pricing, really important in the US market, that the retailers know you have landed prices, that you've covered all the margins, so that they don't have to worry about that. They're going to ask you, what's your markup? They also might say, I don't have budget. That doesn't mean that they don't like your brand or that they don't intend on buying it. I don't have budget can be something that they just say to not be pressured, or it may be in fact the case, and something might fall out and then they might gain budget and come back to you. So that's never a no. That's just something that you might hear. Another thing, are you able to give a sell-through or a gross margin guarantee? This is something that unfortunately has become more and more of a trend, particularly with department stores. But, you know, if you're a newer brand and you're not in a position to do that, the answer can be no also. Another one that is really important that you will definitely get is, what are your payment terms? Something that we noticed with many of the international brands at our last show, they were asking for a 30% down prepay for an order. And just so that you know, there will be many retailers that walk away from that now and won't place an order, even if they really like a brand. So you might want to consider being willing to accept credit card payment. And that would be credit card payment prior to delivery. Or if you're not comfortable with that, at least consider negotiating. If not 30% down, maybe 15% down. Another question that you're definitely going to get is, what are your minimums? Especially because inventory is really key these days. And we had some brands that said things like $5,000 is the minimum. That will likely be for a store, for an independent store. That might be high these days for an initial order. And you might cause them to walk away. A response when I worked for a multi-brand showroom, we started out with minimums too, a dollar amount, and quickly realized that didn't work. So what we did instead, which really worked well, was I would actually say we actually don't have a dollar minimum amount. What we really care about is that you're representing and merchandising the brand well, so that the final customer really has a feel for the brand. And that was automatically the retailer would soften because you're speaking their language and they want their stores to look good too. And it's in their interest to represent the brand that way. So what would happen often was I would get the minimum because then you can suggest, let's say it's a handbag brand. So if you could have two groups, one hobo, a satchel, a small leather good, whatever it may be, and a store will understand that. And that's how you can actually do well in a store, build trust too. Agents, showrooms, and relationships with those showrooms and agents. So all of these questions here are the typical things that you're going to ask when you're thinking of getting an agent or a showroom. And we have to say that that's probably the number one question that we get from brands. It's the first thing, and it's understandable because the US market is intimidating. It's enormous. You might feel like I need an expert to help me, but believe me, and we see many examples of this, it's probably a smart move coming into an entry into the US market not to start with an agent or a showroom. The first reason for that is if you have a middleman, you are not hearing the direct feedback from the stores, or you think you are, but you don't really know. You're getting it's like playing telephone. So you're not sure if you're getting all the feedback. This way, if you have the direct relationship with the stores, and honestly, if you start out in the US market, if you just have a few really good independent boutiques that you have a close relationship with, that you know how they're selling, they're giving you feedback, you can learn an enormous amount about the US market that way. And at the beginning, it is important that you have that relationship and you're getting that information directly from the stores. And then you will know so much by doing that. You're going to naturally know what to ask for in an agent or a showroom, and you will know better if it's for you or not for you. So many times I've heard if somebody right away got an agent or went with a showroom, maybe the next time I see them the next season, they'll say, yeah, that didn't work out, or that often happens. So I would say, trust yourself. If you work hard and you have close relationships with stores, you can grow in this market. It's not impossible. That's the best way to do it.
Yes, and it's also good to explore the showrooms that are at the trade show, right?
Yes.
So when you come to Coterie, you will see a lot of multi-brand showrooms that have accessories. They have bags, jewelry, dresses, and even shoes. in one showroom. So if you happen to have a category that is different and you really are looking for a showroom or a rep, you can have conversations with them and say, oh, I see you have a great showroom. There are a lot of buyers in your booth. Are you missing jeans? Can we introduce our French denim to you? Is that something that you think your buyers would like to buy? So the trade shows are always a good place to start exploring and having those conversations before actually making a decision. And the retainer fees are quite high, right? So when you are deciding to go with a showroom, you will be charged most likely a retainer fee every month, and then they'll also take a commission on sales. So you really want to make sure that you have the right fit.
Yeah, and that's a great point. With when you're at the show, this is one of the few moments. I remember being a brand and thinking at a trade show, it's very rare when you're in an environment where you can talk to the other brands. Usually you're talking to the retailers. So it's a great time to make friends with your neighbors and really talk to each other. And that is a real great learning experience. And our shows, particularly in the US, are order writing shows. They are, which is why I spoke about really being prepared with line sheets and everything. But they're also a great way to learn about the market. And then event preparation. So your booth is your billboard. That's something we also can help you with at the show. We have decor rules, and it's very simple, turnkey with the furniture already there that you don't need to order. So you can just focus on things that will kind of showcase your brand. What retailers do you want to target and why? This is really important. And this is whether you're a new brand or an established brand, you always should look at your target list. If you don't have a target list and you're a new brand, ways you can get a target list are, what are the brands that you think you compete with? Go on their websites and insert who are they, look at their stockist, and you can build your list that way. And then you can investigate on LinkedIn to find the buyers. We also send out on a regular basis our retailers that have signed up for our shows. You can do the same thing and target there. And then send out invitations, book appointments. Even if you just send out the invitations and you don't book appointments ahead of time, that doesn't mean that they didn't see it and you're not on their radar. So that's always really important to do and makes a huge difference in your success at the show. Wherever you're placed, preparation is the most important thing. And in terms of department stores, Edwina mentioned before, they're obviously a key distribution channel in the US. And it's good marketing to be able to say, yeah, I'm in Bloomingdale's or I'm in Saks. But I would also caution, if you are a new brand, you don't necessarily need to be in a department store when you start out. In fact, it's better to kind of dip your toe in with independence and learn, just like with the showrooms first. The other thing with department stores, they are very cautious with their inventory now. So all of them have drop ship. And that means that might be tough for a new brand coming to this market. You could do drop ship with a department store if you've already got your own website with, your distribution center in the US. Otherwise, it can be difficult. So that's just being cautious with the department stores at first. And as I mentioned, our shows are order writing shows. So just always be prepared. Consistency is key. It does take time. And we recommend at least 2 to 3 shows are recommended to really get a feel and to gain traction in the US market. And to really look at it as a long-term strategy, whether it's with us or whatever you're doing with a showroom and with the rest of your distribution. Yeah, and then that's it for that page.
Yeah,
I think I hit everything.
It is. And Laura, how much time do we have left? I want to make sure that we have enough time for questions.
You still have 10, 12
Perfect.
minutes?
Okay, so we'll go through the presentation. I did want to mention, though, that in terms of the countries that are represented at Coterie, for example, or our other events, French fashion is held in very high regard. There is something about the French touch that is very respected from the US buyer. I think French products are already, there's an assumption that it's made in high quality, that the design is very fashionable, trendy. A lot of the brands that come from France that show with us in New York are seeing growth. They're seeing reorders. They're seeing new relationships being built with buyers. So I think there's already a leg up, if you say, with France in comparison to other countries that we may work with. So that is always a benefit. It's like you have a big box that's checked off initially. And then when you do come to the show, it's more about interacting with the buyers, getting them to know you. One of my favorite brands that show with us is Manouche. They have beautiful gowns, you know, great branding. You go on their website actually looks exactly like what their booth looks like at Coterie. So there's a clear common thread between who you are as a brand, how you show up digitally, how you show up on Instagram, and then also how you're showing up at the trade show. So buyers definitely pay attention to that. I think the buyers, many of them that I know, and I ask them questions, so what do you look for in a brand? We want a brand that knows who they are, a story that we can tell, one that we can merchandise in our store, one that our customers can understand really easily. Obviously, they love good price points, right? So if you have a little bit of room for negotiation, that is always great with the US retailer. It's a good way to build a long-term relationship. But there are many buyers that are not so price sensitive. If they see something that they like, they will buy it. If they see something that their customers will buy, whether it's in Texas or New York or Miami, it could be in the middle of the country or a usual big city in the US. There are definitely big communities in the US with disposable income, and many of the buyers that come to Coterie come expecting to buy of that price point. Next slide, please.
Oh, I'm doing it.
Yeah, you're controlling it. Okay, so obviously at our shows, you get to expose your brand, which is one of the benefits. Next slide. We're going to go through this quickly. We do focus a lot on the elements that the buyers like, right? So we have Prosecco hours. We try to do open bars. We have free food for the retailers, which is not common. Many shows have a hard time doing that, but at Coterie in particular, we do offer free food, which is a big draw. We all know that it's very important for us to get as many buyers to stay at the show for as long as possible. So we do focus on going above and beyond. We have Katy Perry here. She came to speak at one of our events in Las Vegas. We do focus on keynote speakers, celebrities, influencers, to come and really drive traffic to the shows, which really works in the US. Everyone loves a celebrity here. That's just how it goes. Next. We have our digital app, which we currently use. Retailers download a QR code and they scan. So we are also trying to figure out ways to capture more data. Now we're actually able to see where buyers are shopping, what entrances they're walking into. That helps us make better decisions. So we don't just have the app because we love it. We're actually using it to get valuable information to just make our shows a little bit easier to navigate and more efficient. And it's great for marketing. The brands get to buy ad space if they want to and stand out a little bit more. So that is something that we're continuing to grow. Oop, that went by fast. You can skip that, Amy. Next. Yeah. Okay, so another great thing about our events is you get to meet editors and publications that are looking to write about what's new. Many international brands are featured in Forbes, Business of Fashion. They're able to get some good press out of the events too that also helps them with their wholesale. So we have a dedicated PR team that invites top editors to come and cover the shows and to interact with the brands, which is another great added value. Next. Our top buyers, most of you know these, but we see buyers across all categories. Anthropologie is a big fan. A lot of the international and domestic brands at Coterie in New York, they love Anthropologie. Everyone wants to get in front of them. Shop Bop is another popular store. Free People, Bloomingdale's. I got to meet the buyer from Bloomingdale's for the first time at Coterie this season. So we're seeing a lot of buyers coming back. Bergdorf Goodman is another favorite. And then you have Isetan out of Japan, ASOS out of the UK. So a well-rounded mix.
We have Merci from France.
Oh, yes, we do.
We love that store.
Yeah, so we're happy that they make it to New York to shop our brands. Next. Okay, so we get this question a lot. What's the difference between Magic, Project, Coterie? It really comes down to the distribution of the brands and the price point. Magic is our mid-price point. I would even say fast fashion home. We now have Magic in New York. So for brands that may not have a high price point, an affordable luxury price point, this is where you can find a little bit of a sweet spot, as we call it here in the US. Magic exists in Las Vegas, New York, Nashville, and we just announced that we're launching Magic in Miami for the first time in January of this year. So none of us will get Christmas off. We'll all be working throughout the holiday. Next. Project, which is the show that I also oversee, is our contemporary men's and women's apparel. We also have a lot of other categories, accessories, grooming. This is a mid to premium price point. Examples of some brands that show with us at Project are Polo Ralph Lauren, Barber, Seven for All Mankind, some brands that you may see at Coterie as well. Levi's, for example, is a big project customer. Project will continue in Las Vegas. We are going to evaluate our marketplace in New York and also in Tokyo. Next. Coterie is the favorite for the French customer. We have a big group of wonderful brands and buyers from France that come to this marketplace. It's the gem of New York. It is the largest fashion marketplace. We're very proud of this show. It covers women's contemporary and advanced contemporary, apparel, accessories, footwear at premium to affordable price points. We are continuing with Coterie in New York because that is where we thrive. We've also built a great community in Miami, and we're currently figuring out if we're going to be moving our Miami community to New York. So stay tuned. We're going to make some new announcements soon, but regardless, we're going to continue to focus on the resort and swim community that we have built. Sourcing at Magic, this is for manufacturers and suppliers. Similar to Premiere Vision, we have sourcing in Las Vegas, and we recently launched in New York this September. It will continue. It was a very positive response. And we also have sourcing online. So if you're looking for new manufacturers or suppliers worldwide, this is a resource that we have. We also produce a digital magazine where we feature some of our favorite brands. So that is something that we are focused on. Next. I will skip the calendar because we have to refresh this. This is the team, Amy, that you got to meet today. We also have Edgar and Ruth. And of course, we have Camille, who is an extension of the team in France, who's done an amazing job with bringing us the best of France. And so we're really grateful for the collaboration, and of course with Anne-Laure at the French Federation. And that concludes our presentation for today.
Thank you very much. That was quite comprehensive, quite exhaustive. Thank you. Is there any question? No? All good.
Any questions on the US market? Feel free.
So tell me, Actually, we speak about a lot about New York in general, and more I hear about Miami, and more I hear about Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think, what should be the different step for a brand? I mean, is it still New York, or now for some summery light women's ready-to-wear collection, should they go directly to Miami or even to LA to exhibit?
That's great question, Anne-Laure. I will say that the beauty of New York is that it still attracts buyers from all over the US. So if you have a category of clothing or a fashion brand that covers that you could cover in many different places, I think New York is probably the safest because you have a wider range or wider pool to choose from. But if you are a beautiful light dress brand or a more resort focused brand, I do think Miami is a great option because you know that there are specific buyers going to shop for a year-round spring summer friendly category. Hotel stores, for example, are becoming increasingly important, right? So you have buying groups from the Four Seasons that will come to New York, but they know for sure they're going to find a wider range in Miami of not only clothing within resort, but accessories, fun jewelry to wear on the beach. I think definitely consider your product, your collection that you're putting out. Know that you will find a wide range in New York, but this is a good time to kind of hone in on a specific market and focus on growing there, especially if you already have established customers on the East Coast. It could be a good time to diversify.
Okay, good to know. Very light question regarding next year. It's going to be the you know.
We know.
Basically, how do you think it's gonna have some effect on the consumption and on the market?
Sorry, Anne-Laure, I missed the first part. You were frozen.
In and out.
Oh, sorry. No, I was saying since next year there will be the presidential election. Yes. Do you think that is going to have an effect on the consumption and as well on the basically on the market?
Yeah, I do think that the political, the election years always provide a shift. When it comes to consumers, though, and in the fashion sector in particular, I do think that they will continue to buy. I will say that the last election was a bit more volatile, and I'm trying to use my words carefully. It was a bit chaotic, depending on the candidates and what was going on in the country politically. It was a very challenging time. I do think that things are a little bit more streamlined in the US going into this election year, but we never know what happens between now and then. I don't think it will have a significant effect on the apparel sector.
Okay, good. We like that.
Hopefully for all of us.
Hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And you guys have the Olympics, is that correct?
Yeah.
Oh, and that is going to have a big effect on our market. That's for sure.
Yes. So hopefully that means that we'll have more people coming to the US to escape some of it.
And actually, I think it's a good point, for the French brand to go abroad and to export, because yes, between the Rugby Cup and the Olympics, I think that wow, the international people want some slight piece of France as well. So that's
they do.
I think it's
Yes.
a good period for a French brand to export actually.
Well,
Yeah.
we are welcoming you with open arms.
We like that. We like that. Thank you. So thank you all for this great presentation of the market and for all this great information that you shared with us. Thank you. Merci beaucoup aussi à vous d'être connectés. Et n'hésitez pas, si vous avez besoin d'informations, à nous contacter. On se fera relais d'informations. N'hésitez pas. Et de la même manière, si on peut vous informer sur les taux de subvention et autres, on est à votre disposition. Ceci conclut notre journée focus pays internationaux. Nous vous remercions et les prochaines dates, est-ce que Tiffany, tu peux les partager? Nos prochaines dates sont actually next events, the upcoming events for our international department. Basically, alors simplement, le 10 novembre prochain, donc nous clôturons nos inscriptions des différentes opérations en Asie Made in France. Quand est-ce que se terminent d'ailleurs les inscriptions pour les salons US et les salons UK? Camille, est-ce que tu as…
Oui, pour les US, on va clôturer début décembre à peu près, entre début décembre et mi-décembre.
D'accord. Et pour le UK, est-ce que nous avons une réponse? Dans le même timing, j'imagine, début décembre aussi. Je pense que c'est début décembre également. Le 16 novembre…
début décembre, oui.
Oui, c'est ça. Merci, Tiffany. Le 16 novembre prochain, nous présenterons le plan export 2024, l'ensemble des actions internationales du service international de la Fédération. Le 28 novembre 23, nous vous donnons également rendez-vous sur l'événement Welcome on Board, mode et international, qui est organisé par la Fédération du Féminin, du Masculin, de l'Enfant, de la Lingerie, du Bijou, de la chaussure, et tout cela grâce au soutien des comités de promotion que sont le CTC, le Défi et France Éclat. Donc, n'hésitez pas à vous inscrire. Toutefois, cet événement, sachez-le, n'est réservé qu'aux marques de mode et aux directeurs export de marques de mode françaises. Merci à toutes. J'ai un message. Bien sûr, je vais vous partager tout de suite mon adresse mail. N'hésitez pas à m'envoyer un mail de façon à ce qu'on vous relaie les webinaires si nécessaire. Hop. À très bientôt. Merci beaucoup.
Merci Anne-Laure, à bientôt.